Welcome to Ask the Expert North Texas here on News Radio 1080 KRLD. I'm David Rankin.
And I'm Kristen Diaz, and we have a big celebration coming up this weekend. And the British Consulate is going to be celebrating the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III with a whole bunch of special events happening here in our state. His Britannic Majesty Consul-General Richard Hyde joins us this afternoon on the KRLD Afternoon News. It's a pleasure to have you today. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
So, of course, the whole world knows that this is happening this weekend. How are you celebrating with the community specifically?
Well, it's Texas, so we have to go big. We have, unfortunately, I cover 5 states, and I'd love to be able to do stuff across all 5 states, across Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio as well. But we're limiting ourselves, unfortunately, only to Houston. But in the morning, we're doing a big celebration. So the king is a great lover of the environment. He's a great ecological warrior. He's been doing this for decades and decades and decades. Before it became trendy to be focused on the planet, he was already doing it. So he's encouraged us around the world to give something back to our communities and to think about the environment. So on Saturday morning, we're going to get a lot of school children and our friends and British businesses to come out and help us to clean up the Buffalo Bayou in Houston. We're going to do that in a hot, sunny day. So we're going to have some snow cones and other things for the kids. But we're basically going to go out there, get our hands dirty and clean up and help keep the city beautiful. And then immediately from that, I'm going to quickly change. It's a bit like the Oscars, I'm going to quickly change and a dash across town to a celebration by an organization called the British American Foundation for Texas, which is a charity that we support, that my wife sits on the board of. And this is a charity that raises money ostensibly from British businesses and communities across Texas. They raise money for brilliant young people, brilliant young Texans who don't have the means really to go for to reach their educational goals. So they provide scholarships and support, and it's a wonderful organization. It's been going for 12 or 13 years, raised a couple of $1 million. They're doing amazing things. So they're having a watch, a coronation watch. So I'm going to jump in there, give a little speech, toast to the king, say hi to everybody. Then I'm going to go off from there to set up for our big event. So we're having a huge party, like 600-700 people at the Arboretum in Houston. And this was deliberately chosen, A, because it can accommodate 600-700 people outdoors, but B, most importantly, it is a nature conserve. So we're doing this in touch with nature. Everything we do is going to be appropriate. We're not going to be knocking holes in things and using single-use plastics and all those things. It's going to be a wonderful British celebration. We're going to have pipers. We're going to have Aston Martins and classic Jaguars, and we're going to have British beer being brewed specially in Texas, a whole bunch of things, whiskey, gin, all the things that you would expect at a British shindig.
What is it about this particular event that is fascinating for so many Americans?
It's really hard to explain. I've lived all around the world. This is like the 9th country I've lived in. And I like to think or thought I knew America, knew Texas. But I've been really astounded in the last 12 months. We had the Queen's Jubilee last year. Then sadly, we had the passing of the Queen and the Queen's funeral, and now we have the coronation. And the level of interest, I mean, it's overwhelming at times how much knowledge, first of all, and interest there is in all things Britain and all things royal. Now, I make jokes with my American colleagues about, the temporary separation. You guys will come back one day. But the reality is that we do have this incredible shared history. So I think most Americans appreciate the history. Most Americans can tell you where their forefathers and foremothers came from, their ancestry. If someone's got a touch of Scottish or Welsh or Irish, they'll tell you the first time they meet you. So people are really conscious of where they came from in this melting pot that you call America. And Texas is incredibly diverse. So people are from Mexican Americans or Latin American Americans or European Americans, it doesn't matter. People know where they're from. And I think anybody with even a hint of British interest or British connection has some connection to the coronation. This is a 1,000-year-old process that we're going to be reenacting on Saturday. Edward the Confessor, say Edward, one of the great saints and one of the great kings of England, built Westminster Abbey 1,000 years ago. And that abbey is where he sat to be crowned, and that abbey is where King Charles will be crowned, the very same spot 1,000, 1,200 years later. So it's that kind of sense of history And most Americans, either directly, indirectly, or just because they like the Crown TV show, they will watch this and be really interested in it.
Absolutely. And also it's the pomp and circumstance, right? The glam, the glitz, the carriages and all the jewels and also the tradition. What do you think is going to be most interesting to look out for in comparison to the broadcast of this compared to King Charles' mother and now where, he will be broadcasting his coronation?
So famously, the Queen Elizabeth's coronation was the first one that was ever televised. And it was an interesting debate at the time. The Queen's husband, Prince Philip, felt that the coronation, the tradition of the coronation, it's a ceremonial viewing of the new monarch by the public. So the king became the king as soon as his mother passed away. But the coronation is basically, we are showing you to the people that our continuity of leadership, there it is. And that's what the coronation is about. It's ceremonial. And Prince Philip's view was the people need to see it. We have television, let them see it. Interestingly, Winston Churchill, who was great for many things, was a diehard opponent of this. He thought it debased the whole monarchy by allowing people to watch it on TV sets. And so there was an interesting debate, and of course the prince won. New husband, his voice had the sway. So they filmed it, and of course we modernize again. So it's going to be live streamed. It's going to be a much more diverse crowd at Westminster Abbey this time. So we know the king has modernized it a little bit. Every monarch has changed things a little bit, but it's going to be interesting. But the bit that you won't see, there's one bit of the ceremony that we won't really see, and I think that's the most important bit of the ceremony. If you're a religious person, if you're a Christian or Jewish, you'll know that in the Old Testament, the kings were anointed. The kings of Israel were anointed with the holy oils. It's that process of the holy anointment is probably the most significant part of the coronation, and that's done behind a sheet. The Queen always spoke about that moment, not the crown, not the gold carriages, not the regalia. It was the whole anointment with holy oils that come from the Holy Land. The oils are actually brought specially from the Holy Land. That moment is when the king commits himself with an oath to God to be the monarch, to serve the monarch and to serve God. So it's a very religious thing as well. And whatever your religion is, it doesn't matter. What the king is doing is swearing for his God that he's going to take this role seriously.
Let's talk about what to watch out for, because a lot of people will be watching the coronation on television. What should we be seeing? What should we be looking for specifically during the coronation ceremonies? Because they're going to be on for a long time.
That's right. And it's going to be on very early in the morning as well. The time difference it never helps us because it's a long old day for us. I think the thing to watch out for is if you listen to which commentary you get, the BBC commentary is always very good for this. It explains the symbolic nature of specific things. So we had our own little revolution back in the 17th century, and King Charles II, an unfortunate name coincidence, was crowned after the revolution. But during the revolution, many of the artifacts of the coronation were lost, destroyed, or stolen. But there's a few little bits remaining, the ceremonial swords, but most importantly, and go back to my last point, is the spoon they use for the anointing oils is the original one that goes all the way back. So that's probably the only piece of the original crown jewels that's left. And so they'll talk about that. So I'm always intrigued by that. It's a really interesting thing. So the crown was remade after Reformation, after we gained our monarchy and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of things are replicas, except for a couple of little pieces, and that's the bit I'm always looking out for. The other thing is he comes in one carriage and he leaves in a different one. They're not the most comfortable things, these carriages. They were built a long time ago. I've heard, yeah. Golden carriages, it's not really all Disney and Cinderella. They're a little bumpy, but that's why I look out for the kind of carriages and the state carriages and the golden carriages and all of the different people involved in the process as well. I learned something. I've never seen a coronation, so I'm looking to learn as well.
I was curious about that. Texas is a melting pot, and you never know who you're going to meet. And I'm sure you've met so many people from the UK or with ties to the UK, as you mentioned. Are they as interested into the coronation as just Americans are, and other people around the world are as fascinated? Because I've heard mixed reaction that people from the actual UK are not as wild about it as we are.
I think look, it varies. We have a fairly unique constitutional setup in the UK, where we elect our government, but we inherit our head of state. Now, I've been to many countries around the world who kind of wish they had the same system at times, but the reality is that, you know, we're all Democrats. You know, we all believe in democracy. We all believe in the right to choose our own governments. And so some people, I think it's a small minority of people, will look at a monarchy in the UK and think it's anachronistic. It's, you know, these people are, you know, are born to it. But I think the vast majority of people, particularly with the late Queen, and now with the, you know, in the early days of King Charles, I think whatever your view on the rights and wrongs of an inherited monarchy, the fact is, these are incredible people who do incredible things and really do demonstrate a proud belief in service. When the late Queen, when she passed away, the outpouring of grief that we found from around the world. I mean, I opened a condolence book here in Houston, which is a mandatory, which we have to do. But normally we're not allowed to move the condolence book. It's a very ceremonial thing. I had so much demand that I moved it to Austin for a day and then took it to Dallas for a day. I actually took it to Dallas twice. Once was for the public, which the mayor of Dallas very kindly opened the city hall, and we had crowds of people coming to sign it and share memories. Many people had never met a member of the royal family, but they had little things to say. But I had to go back again because President Bush and Mrs. Bush wanted to sign a condolence book as well. So I actually came with it twice to Dallas. That says to me that a lot of the people that signed the book were Texans, but a lot of them were British people as well. So there is, in the UK, there is a real strong sense that the royal family, the king and his late mother, demonstrate towards the important values of service and duty. And whether or not you believe a monarchy is the right thing or wrong thing, we respect that. Just like in the United States, irrespective of your political affiliations, you know, once you elect a mayor or a governor or a president, you're patriotic. You believe in that person there is representing me, even though I may not have voted for them. So it's the same kind of concept. It's fundamental to our culture that we believe in honor, duty, and service. And these are the things that the monarchy represents, even if we don't like, you know, people with crowns.
Yeah, you talk about service, and the Queen had always talked about the importance of service. What does that mean to the royal family? What is service?
It's service basically is that, you know, as the monarch, the Queen, famously, the Queen never gave a TV interview. You know, as a monarch, you cannot express your view directly on anything that is even vaguely political. Now, the Queen was an amazing human being who, in 70 years of service to her country on the throne, developed an incredible technique to express an opinion without expressing an opinion. You knew when the Queen liked or didn't like something by a very subtle change of expression. But and we interpret that. We don't know if it's true or not. But the Queen, you can't pass a judgment. If you have a prime minister who you absolutely love or absolutely hate, you have to have a straight face and you have to deal with it. And I'm a diplomat. I have to present the views of my government, and occasionally I don't not personally agree with them. It's really, really hard, but I can choose to leave. The Queen can't, the King can't. So for me, the service piece is always being the figurehead for the country, for a policy, signing laws, whether or not you agree with them. Look how many times, US presidents, the state governors of Texas veto bills. The Queen and the King can never do that constitutionally. They have to nod and smile, and everything is done in their name. So I am His Majesty's Consul-General. I was Her Majesty's Consul-General. It is His Majesty's government. It's all done in their name, irrespective of whether they like it or not. And for me, that is a real sense of service. They are the consistency in the country. Politicians come and go. Populists come, populists go. Policies come, policies go. Wars come, difficult times come. political crises and chaos come, but the monarchy has to just sit there and be calm, be surreal, be regal, and be that one thing that we look and think, oh, at least somebody is unflappable in these crazy times.
Tell me a little bit about your experience of starting to travel to, you said 9 different countries.
Yeah.
I mean, you have an incredible story, I'm sure, and career. What has that been like for you?
It's been fascinating. So, my first overseas assignment, it was in 1992 in Bermuda. So I started in a nice place. That was where I met my wife. And interestingly, that's where I first met the Queen and Prince Philip. So they did a state visit to Bermuda while I was there. And interestingly, I met my wife there, and she also met the Queen and Prince Philip at the same time in separate events. And so we have that kind of, even though we didn't know each other really, we have that sort of shared memory. But then we've been all around the world, and I've had lots of engagements with the royal family in all kinds of places. So, Prince and now King Charles, I've had the pleasure of working with him on a number of occasions. And the thing about the royal family is that they come for a relatively short period of time on a visit, and it's a hugely complicated planning process because the hosts really, really want to show how much they welcome and love these visitors, because they are really loved in all kinds of places. Whether it's Bermuda, or I was in Cuba with Prince Charles, I was in India with Prince Charles, I was in all kinds of places around the world with different members of the royal family. People genuinely are interested, intrigued, and love them. I mean, I think the love in America is a whole different level. I mean, you guys really do go to a next level in terms of your interest, affection, and I get asked so many questions about the royal families, but yeah, all traveling all around the world, it's been a phenomenal experience. And my poor wife, we got married, and I just started taking her east and east and east. So I was in, we were in Paris, which was lovely. We were first married, and we were in Saudi Arabia. I went to Saudi Arabia shortly after 9/11. So that was tough times to be in the Middle East. I was in India twice. We were in Armenia, which was an amazing experience. I was in Venezuela. I've been in Costa Rica. And I've done all kinds of jobs in London and around the world. But the fact is that, everywhere we go, we're able to talk about the history, the culture, and the UK contribution to the world. And it's, we probably an American diplomat, so fairly unique in being able to do that. And, some people love us, some people don't love us so much, but always we're able to make a connection. And quite often it's the royals that give us that, that foot in the door.
We don't really know too much about the new king. We knew a little bit about the Queen. We heard that she had an incredible sense of humor. I mean, for example, would the new king do what the Queen did and jump out of a plane before the 2012 Olympics with James Bond, for example?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, the Queen was amused until the very end that people actually thought she did that. But yeah, I think he has a. I've spent a little bit of time in his presence. I wouldn't ever claim to know him, but he does have quite a sharp sense of humor as well. I mean, the whole family does. Princess Anne, I've done some stuff with in the past, but they have quite a dry and a very British dry cutting humor. We have quite a dark humor in the UK. Like American humor is much more flamboyant. Ours tends to be a little cutting, and they do. I mean, the Duke of Edinburgh, the King's father, I had lots of experience with. And he was very funny, very witty, sometimes controversial, but always, you knew exactly where you stood with him. And I think King Charles gets a little bit of that from him. But he's actually a very cultured man. He's a very thoughtful man. I mentioned before about the environment and ecology. I remember in the sort of the 70s and 80s when people just didn't think about these things. He was talking about the rainforest. He was talking about the types of agriculture that we carry and the agricultural behaviors and the damage that was doing to the soil and over farming and all of the impacts of that. He's also a great lover of architecture, and he famously was very critical of some of the slightly surreal architecture that was produced in London in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which was this beautiful city he felt was being scarred by some quite brutal architecture that was going up. So he's been outspoken on that as well. So he has been outspoken, probably much more than his mother as Prince of Wales. Now, as king, I don't know whether he'll continue to do that because he has more of a constitutional role. But he's a man of sort of deep thinking. He's a very spiritual man as well. You know, it's very interesting that I think he takes his role as the head of the Church of England, the Anglican Episcopal Church, very, very seriously. But also he likes to embrace other religions as well. So he's been very careful, I think, in the coronation and around the coronation, which is ostensibly a religious ceremony, to include all the other faiths as well. You know, when he came to India, he was very focused on meeting a variety of the Indian religions, you know, Sikhism, Hinduism, Buddhism. They were all included in things he does. He's very focused on engaging with, you know, Jewish populations, with Islamic populations. So he's a very spiritual man and respects faith very much as well. But to answer your question in a very long roundabout, I think he does have quite a wicked sense of humor, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as noticeable as it was with the Queen, who was very kind of austere of a generation. And when she said something funny, we all laughed because it was like such a shock. I think Charles is a little more known for his cheeky jokes.
Now, speaking of Queen, we also have Queen Camilla. That will be the big headline this weekend. How has the reaction been from Americans that you've interacted with on that side of the celebration?
Well, I think it's quite intriguing because we've not had a Queen consort for a long, long time. So I think it's interesting. I think, you know, this is a couple who, and I spent time immediately before coming to this role. I was with them for 3 or 4 days in Cuba on a visit there, and it was really interesting to see them. They are very much a couple. They are very much a team, and I think the late Queen made a point of saying before she passed away that it was her wishes that Camilla would become the Queen Consort, because it wasn't guaranteed, and it made it so much easier then for the King to do that. And I think that was a demonstration that she understood that her son, you know, was going to be a great king, but needed his partner, his wife, to be alongside him. So I think people are really starting to understand that. And I say I've seen them close up, and they are a great couple. They are a loving couple. They're very kind of tactile, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And you know, and it's like, you know, people whose grandparents are at that age group as well, who are very much in love. It is a beautiful thing to see. And I think for the country, having the King and the Queen Consort is actually a huge advantage to us, because it gives the King strength and support. And it also allows us to have, you know, 2 major royals who can go and visit things rather than just one.
One thing that's fascinating about this whole ceremony that's coming up is you mentioned the intricate planning of this event, even down to the who gets to sit in what seat. It all just seems to be making headlines that this person will be sitting behind that person and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite focused on protocol. I think that is probably, it's an unfair stereotype at times, but it is a stereotype. You know, overseas we like to be much more relaxed. You know, we all first names, we don't use titles and stuff. But I think when it comes to these big state occasions, protocol determines everything. And you know, just like at the any event we do, any royal wedding, we have, I think, 200 or more heads of state are going to be there, and they will be sat according to the protocol. Which is, you know, there's a rule book on where people sit. Heads of state first, heads of government are behind them, you know, and representatives come behind them. So, yeah, and, you know, fortunately, you know, in history, we've had a lot of issues with alphabetic listings, you know, so it's probably sometimes it's good, you know, back in the day, Iran and Iraq sitting next to each other probably wasn't conducive with Israel on the other side, probably wasn't conducive to good international relations. So sometimes the protocol is helpful. Let's put it that way.
Well, once again, the coronation of their Majesties King Charles III and Queen Camilla will take place at Westminster Abbey this Saturday, May 6th, 2023. But there's going to be all kinds of celebrations happening in Houston that you do not want to miss, especially if you are all about the pomp and circumstance. These events paying tribute to the King's love of the community, the natural world, the Buffalo Bayou cleanup. There's going to be a cricket match, a garden party, so much more. How can people continue to stay up to date with all of the events, and how can they come out and participate? Do they need to sign up or just show up?
So we have all of our social media channels will have information. So the UK and Texas is basically how you find us. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. give us a follow, give us a share. We have a whole. I've been narrating a whole series of little video messages about sort of detailing the prince's visits to Texas twice, to New Mexico, to Louisiana. So the history of all of his visits to this region, I've been narrating them. We've been putting them on social media. We've done all kinds of videos. So the cricket match next week is going to be great fun in Houston. Lots of information. So it's the famous rivalry, the British-Australian rival. We reenacted next Saturday an Ashes cricket match. And I got into trouble earlier on an interview for saying that, if you don't know what cricket is, come along and find out. It's a beautiful cultured sport. It involves lots of meals, just like baseball. But what I did say, I got into trouble, is it's like baseball, but good. I actually love
living
baseball.
in Astros country.
Uh-oh.
I love baseball too. I go to the games all the time. But it's a joke. We got to have a little humor in this. But at UK in Texas, or at UK in TX, sorry, on Instagram and Twitter. Is where you'll find us, and we have a whole range of things going on. But the other thing for anybody who's going to be in Houston is that my residence in River Oaks and Kirby Drive is lit up all week. So as soon as it gets dark, there's going to be a big light display on my house.
How cool.
I get a lot of sleep at the moment, but it's going to be really cool. It's got all of the kind of beautiful colors of the British flag. It's got the Coronation, what's it called, crest, and everything else. So it's a pretty cool light show we've got going on there. And that's going to be obviously tonight, tomorrow night, and through to Saturday.
How fabulous. His Britannic Majesty Consul-General Richard Hyde. Thank you so much for the time here on KRLD.
Thank you so much.